Are we in a recession? Now, history doesn't repeat itself, but it definitely rhymes. Right now, the internet is flooded with major headlines on mainstream media, with billionaires like Elon Musk and economists like Ray Dalio warning us about some massive recession.
Close to having stagflation?
Yeah, we are in stagflation.
We are. Stagflation is simply where you have inflation, and yet at the same time you have high unemployment.
Yeah, you have economic weakness.
Right.
In other words, you have a stagnant economy. Stagnant, essentially
meaning growth is reduced.
Low growth, and with high inflation.
Now, to know if we're actually headed towards a recession, or if we're already in it, or how worse can it get, we first need to analyze a couple of things. Let's understand what recession actually means. A recession is a macroeconomic term that refers to a significant decline in general economic activity in a designated region. So, in simpler terms, we can say that recession actually means slowing down of an economy along with its GDP. So, is our economy actually slowing down? And the answer to that is yes, it is. To better understand this concept, we first need to analyze different market cycles. This includes expansion, peak, recession, trough, recovery, and so on. So, our economy has these 5 phases which keep coming and going within a span of a few years. Now, what causes the switch from one phase to another are the causes responsible for it. Just like we have indicators to analyze different stocks and crypto charts, in a similar manner, we have some indicators which can tell us if our economy is already in the recession or if it is heading towards it. Here, most of the data points will be of the USA because it is that one country which impacts the entire world. USA is the world leader in terms of total GDP contribution, along with being the biggest trade economy of the world. US dollar is the global reserve currency which is used globally all across the world. So any changes in the US or in the US dollar are likely to have a similar impact on the entire world. Now let's look at various causes which are likely to indicate towards a recession. First, rising inflation rate, which is clearly at record high level. Second, supply chain shortages, which again is a problem taking forever to solve. And other causes also include economic shocks. Recessions are not always caused by overheating. Sometimes they're also triggered by certain negative, uncertain, and external events, which economists refer to as shocks to the economy. In the past 2 years, I think it's obvious that our economy has suffered through major economic shocks like the pandemic, followed by excessive money printing, followed by soaring inflation rates, mortality, jobs being lost, never seen in this capacity in the past 2 decades. And now, one of the biggest phases of interest rate hike done by Fed and geopolitical issues like Russia's invasion of Ukraine. These are the two topics about which I've talked about in my last video. There's another thing which seems really interesting to me, that is the yield curve inversion. This is that indicator which has predicted almost every recession in the past 30 years with an exception of just one. So just to make things easier, just remember that there are two types of government bonds, short-term bonds and long-term bonds. Ideally, the interest or yield on long-term bonds is supposed to be higher than the interest received on short-term bonds. Reason being simple, because in case of long-term bonds, people are putting their money for longer duration to get better returns. But when the yield or interest on short-term bonds becomes greater than the return on long-term bonds, this graph becomes inverted. The most common pair used in this is the US 30-year bond minus the US 2-year bond, which has been negative again now after 2019. This is something which is turning out to be a cause of worry for many people across the globe. Another thing which I mentioned earlier was that we will officially be in a recession when the GDP growth has been negative for 2 consecutive quarters. It was already negative for the first quarter of 2022. Now we'll have to wait to see the result of the second quarter. According to Atlanta Fed's GDP Now, we're likely to see negative GDP in the second quarter, running at a negative of 2.1%. All this information, be it about the GDP data, the inflation rate, yield curve inversion, and even the economic shocks, indicate that we already might be in a mild recession. Generally, after hearing something like this, people become extremely panicky and start thinking about selling everything and getting out of the markets.
That's horrendous. Sell everything.
This is probably the worst approach you can go by. Obviously, recession indicates a slowdown or downturn in the economy with problems like unemployment, inflation, financial losses, lower living standard, decline in retirement savings, etc. etc. But recessions also have major benefits for the economy at large. What are these benefits? First, they rectify imbalances, which removes hindrances for future growth of the economy. Second, they end misallocation of money into certain assets which are either operationally weak or don't have any real utility. One of the biggest examples of this is the surge of VC funding in 2021 in crypto and Web3 startups. A lot of it was just dumb money which has stopped now. Because of this, a lot of crypto companies and projects which were doing really well last year are struggling to exist now. Honestly, this is why we say that most of the crypto projects won't even exist in the coming few years, and only the ones which are operationally and fundamentally strong and are solving a real use case will be the ones standing on top. Something very similar happened back in the year 2000 2001, which was the dot-com bubble. Recessions have also proven to be a great opportunity for investors with a long-term time horizon. It is where the money flows from the fearful and financially uneducated to the financially educated person. Keep investing money and focus on cash flow. This can be through a job promotion or even a side hustle of your own. What majority of the people do is spend a lot of money and invest whatever's left of it. But the key here is to do the exact opposite of that. The tide will change soon, just like the cycles of the economy. Like I mentioned earlier, keep investing and focus on cash flow, as investing in times of fear and panic is what will give you the edge. Again, this only makes sense when you invest in the right places. You need to be the one to not be fearful and impulsive, to be able to capitalize on the opportunities which are coming your way, and to be the one who benefits from this recession. In the next video, I'm going to try explaining how you can benefit from this recession. And as always, I would love to know what you guys think about this video.